Hey, hey,
Hello.
hey.
Hey,
Yes,
hey,
blonde
hey.
braids. Come on.
Listen, I'm gonna get out the car because we are in full-fledged organizational mode and everybody in the car is talking at the same time. So
It's
if you
all good.
just give me 1 second to get out this car and get where I can talk to you, and put some lip stuff on. Because
Yeah,
I heard you talking about
listen.
you had a filter. I don't have no filter.
Tamika, listen, sis. It's hard out here. Swipe and put one on. Because listen, okay?
I
We
don't even know how to do that. Y'all gotta teach me these things.
I'm going to be at the march tomorrow, so if I see you, I got you.
You show me how to do it because I want to use a filter too, and I want to be like you. You glowing. I
Yeah,
want to
well,
be
I got a ring
glowy.
light too. Like you in a car, but you got the natural light. So it's just like.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm really gonna have the natural light in 1 second because I'm getting ready to get out the car and stand on the streets.
Okay. Yes, I saw that comment. Thank you. Neither of us need one. Amen. Praise the Lord. Yes, now I can. You
There we
froze a little
go.
bit.
There we go. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Doing awesome. I'm out in these mean DC streets.
Yes, we love to see it. We love to see it.
Yes, yes. We just actually got here a few hours ago, getting geared up. It's about to rain. We like, yep, let's get that out the way today.
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about rain tomorrow.
Yes. Well, since we're already talking about it, let everybody know what's going down in DC. If you're not going to be there, you're not standing up for the rights. Make Good Trouble rally. Tell everybody about it.
So, 58 years ago, Dr. King, A. Philip Randolph, Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, and a number of other individuals, including Congressman John Lewis, were in Washington, D.C. for a rally. And actually, the rally was for jobs and freedom. And 58 years later, we're still fighting for some of the same things. Every year we come back to Washington, we commemorate the anniversary of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. And we do what Congressman John Lewis told us, which is to cause good trouble, to make good
Yeah.
trouble. We do that every year, but this year I think is especially important for those of us, especially those of us who voted in this previous election and the most recent election and really did our job to make sure that we stop Donald Trump and his harmful behavior, politics, and all that. Some people say, well, I don't know if he was that terrible. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Because if you know what we
Mm.
know, Donald Trump was in the process of installing judges, federal judges with extreme conservative views all over the country in many, many states. And that's something that our people do not need. And there are a number of
Mm.
other things that we could talk about today, but we're not talking about that because he is no longer the president. The issue is that the man that we elected, President Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris, they have a responsibility to us. Now, there's some folks for people going because they feel the Republicans need to stop. Sorry,
Okay.
somehow my internet connected to something I don't even know. So my bad. But I
It's
was
all
saying
good.
that there are a lot of people who are going to Washington tomorrow for many different reasons.
Mm.
But for us, our organization, Until Freedom, you had Woke Vote that will be there tomorrow. Our sister Dewana Thompson, Cliff Albright, and Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter. NAACP DC. You've got the Trigger Project. So many different organizations and groups, over 100 partners coming together tomorrow. And for me specifically, I'm going to talk to the Democrats because I do not want to hear any more of their stories about what we can't do. We were
Mm.
told to go flip Georgia from being a red state to a blue state. We did that. The people of Georgia showed up at the polls. Many of us organized. We did what we had to do. We lived on the road through the general election and again for the Senate race. And still, there is a bottleneck with us getting something done about police accountability, being able to protect our voting rights. And because of all of that, we're going to D.C. to say, hell no, our rights are non-negotiable. And so
Yeah.
we're asking, we know folks are tired of marching. No, it is not the answer. It's not the
Mm.
full answer, but it helps to make sure that people know we are united around certain issues.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say because I feel like a lot of people felt like, we came out and we voted. record numbers, right? And we did flip the Senate on its head. But a lot of the things that, you know, we asked for as a community, it's felt like has been pushed to a back burner. Me personally, I got a really bad taste in my mouth, Tamika, when I saw the anti-Asian hate laws come to pass so quickly after
Right.
they mobilized in a short amount of time, what it felt like, compared to Black people who have been marching for years about justice in our community. So, what do you say to
Right.
people who, you know, felt like they did try to mobilize and we aren't seeing the direct commitment from the White House and
And
Congress?
right.
That
So it's important for us because I've been hearing the same thing about the Stop Asian Hate bill, right? And I've been
Mhm.
hearing people talk about how frustrated they are that we saw a bill pass there, and Black folks, as you said, we've been fighting for justice for a long time and have not seen legislation move quick enough on our behalf. It's
Right.
important for people to understand factually what took place. Listen, I don't know
Mhm.
what kind of storm is coming, but what I'm gonna do is go inside this
Listen,
building
go
and talk
inside and take cover,
because
Tamika. We
I
can't
don't,
lose you,
you
sis.
know what I mean? I don't want the lightning to strike me. But it's important for us to understand what happened there. Mitch
Okay.
McConnell, who's probably one of the most powerful men in America, the most powerful Republican anyway,
Mhm.
his wife is Asian. And
Right.
so when the bill came up, when this process for trying to protect the Asian community, when that happened, there was no resistance from the Republicans. They actually came to the table, and there was basically a unanimous decision that they wanted to pass this bill. That does not exist when it comes to Black folks, particularly when we're dealing with policing and other issues, which
Mhm.
is why it frustrates me that
Yeah.
President Biden and others keep talking about bringing the Republicans along and trying to pass bills by finding ways to work across the aisle. It's never worked for us. So
Yeah.
in the situation with the Stop Asian Hate bill, you had a system that worked. And the
Mhm.
system worked because it wasn't just the Democrats that wanted to get it done. The Republicans were at the table and they worked together. And so, of course, that's what you saw happen, especially, as I said, the most powerful Republican in this country outside of Donald Trump.
Right.
Actually, his wife is an Asian
Co-signed.
woman. So we have to know factually and understand what's going on, because if the Democrats at this point, with the filibuster in place, which is basically when the elected officials and these governing bodies are able to delay the process of bringing a bill to the floor and voting on it. They delay it by filing all types of motions, playing
Mhm.
all the games and the loopholes that they know to play. They delay it by the most common thing that we know is that they sit on the floor and talk for hours and hours and hours to slow down and potentially stop. And in most cases, they actually stop the vote. So when you have the filibuster in place, along with people who do not want to see our communities succeed, it's not going to be that easy to get a bill passed the same way that the Stop Asian Hate bill passed. And that's
Mm.
why what we want is to see a situation where the President Biden and those people who told us that if we vote for them, they were
Yep.
going to go and do the work of making sure our communities were protected. We don't want to hear shit. We don't want to hear the stories about whatever you have to do. If you've got a few Democrats that are blocking the process, then their asses need to be called to the carpet
Gone.
and they need to be put on Front Street, and we need to tear up the walls until we get what we need done. And that's the type of action that we're going to be demanding tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that because I think that, you know, again, when you do the work of voting, we have to understand what it looks like after that, right? Because, you know,
Yeah.
I remember Diddy caught a lot of flack when he said, just because they're Democrat, we don't owe them our vote. And a lot of people got upset about that. But I think we're seeing somewhat of that when we're not seeing the policies be put in place in our benefit when Kamala Harris literally when she was elected said this was on the backs of Black women. This was on the backs of Black people. So it's hard for us to sit back idle by, and I'm glad that we're doing this rally tomorrow because there does need to be change, and we have to mobilize in order to do so.
Well, but I just want to say on two things I see in the comments, because I pay attention to some of the comments, and I saw one person saying, oh shoot, it left my mind. They were talking about the Ice Cube and getting the contract signed, which I support before we vote for people. But the thing that's important for that conversation is that we didn't have a contract with the Republicans either. But we also knew what type of behavior this man was carrying on. 600,000 plus people died from our communities because President Trump dropped the ball, and in fact, he was actually he neglected the American people by lying, by playing politics and not wanting, because he was running for re-election. He didn't want folks to know what was going on with COVID, and so they hid information and they lied to us. And our family members and friends have died, and we are in a crisis today. Economically, we're in a crisis emotionally, mentally, because people have been locked in their homes because of the inaction and the inadequacy of the previous administration. So neither one of them are great. But what we said was that we needed to be able to hold somebody accountable. And you can't hold accountable people that you don't vote for. I don't vote during the Republican primary. I don't donate to Republican candidates. I'm a Democrat. And let me say, I believe we need a new party. And I support Puff Daddy. I call him Puff, but some people call him Diddy. Some people call him Puff Daddy.
Brother Love.
Brother Love. I love the loved one. I support 1,000% this idea that we need a new party, and we need a party that represents our issues, if for no other reason but to get our people organized, so that when we do go to vote for these candidates, we are very, very, very clear, and that we're clear, and that we have a list of demands, as has been said, and that we are unified around a particular message. So these things are definitely important to us, but in the time in which we are currently standing, we knew that the current president that was in office was very, very dangerous to us just off GP. Forget about just being dangerous to Black folks or whatever. He was dangerous to the American public. And so now we have a new administration. Somebody was going to be president. We have a new administration, and it is our responsibility not to just go to Washington when we are trying to talk to Donald Trump, or when we're frustrated about that. We got to go when the Democrats are in office and bring our message directly to them. We always said that we were going to have to fight. We never said, let's go vote for these people and go home. We did that with President Obama, and it was a mistake. We said, we're choosing a better opponent that gives us more access so that we can go inside, outside, around, up, wherever. I'm not an insider, but nonetheless, I know people who are good people, who are in there pushing so that we can get something done. And now it is our job to fight like we've never fought before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of fight, Until Freedom, your organization was instrumental with the Breonna Taylor protest and helping Breonna Taylor's family. And so obviously we did not get the charges that we felt were just. And so one of my questions to you is, because you were so instrumental in that, is what can we do now, right? Because, certain officers have been charged with what they've been charged with, which was not really any justice, in my opinion, to Breonna and her life. So what can we still do as a community? Because now that it's not trending, now that it's not on the news every day, how can we still help Breonna Taylor get justice at this point?
So also important that 3 of the 4 officers who were directly involved in Breonna Taylor's murder were fired from their jobs, and that happened because of the movement on the ground. Right. We stood and we said, while we may not have been able to get justice from that ignorant Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, even though we weren't able to get it there, we told the mayor of the city that he had a responsibility to make sure that those officers did not continue to work for the Louisville Metro Police Department, and they are gone. Certainly not justice, but important to make sure we know all the details of what has taken place. Tomorrow, Breonna Taylor's family will be with us in Washington, D.C. at the Lincoln Memorial. I got to keep saying the Lincoln Memorial tomorrow. There's a lot of rallies happening, different people in different spaces. So we, Tamika, Mallory, and the groups that I work with, we will be at the Lincoln Memorial beginning at 10 o'clock, and we're asking folks to join us. Breonna Taylor's family will be with us. Tatiana Jefferson, we can't forget that sister who was shot and killed through the window of her apartment, of her house, for no reason at all. Her family will be with us. George Floyd's family will be with us, because even though they may have received a form of justice, they know that the fight, the struggle is long, and that they can't just get up and walk away. So they will be with us. And we need to be there with these families, because remember that federal charges still can be brought against these officers and these police departments across the nation. The federal government has the right, the ability to step in. And so that's why the struggle for Breonna Taylor has not stopped. We continue to work together, and we hope that soon we will hear from the feds and from this Attorney General, what's his name, Garland, that charges have actually been filed against the officers who killed Breonna Taylor.
Okay, yeah, that's great information to know, because I think that, again, when everything is trending, when everything is popular, when the news is covering it, it's easy to get behind. But when the fire dies, it's still important for people to know how to do so. I did want to ask you this. This is something that my mind has kind of been racing about since George Floyd. There's been a lot of argument and discussion about social media activism versus on the ground activism, which on one hand we saw social media activism play a huge role in George Floyd, correct? Like,
Right.
I think the whole thing got flipped on its head because it was recorded on video and placed on social media. But however, the people who stayed on the ground in Minneapolis, and who fought, who looted, in my opinion, were some of the reasons why we saw a difference in reaction from our white counterparts and people around the world, honestly. So what are your thoughts on the balance of social media activism versus on the ground activism, and how can both intertwine to collectively bring liberation to our people?
Yeah, I think they're both necessary, right? I appreciate the idea that for the Women's March, that I was one of the 4 co-founders of, that what was important, or that what started it, was a woman who sent out a tweet. She sent one tweet out saying, or one Facebook post saying to her family and friends, we got to go to Washington right after Donald Trump was elected. From that one message that went from her 40 friends to 10,000 people that became 5 million people that marched worldwide, we know that social media activism matters, and it does work, but it is not enough. I'm old school. I come from a time when you have to be able to take what you do online on the ground. A lot of people don't have access to internet. They're not on the net. They don't know everything that's happening. They're not watching you post flyers. But when you knock on their door and you talk to them and you go into their communities and let them know that they have to be a part of the struggle, that's where you win. And I believe we have to mobilize our people in a real grassroots way and let them know that the people who are most marginalized, the people who are deeply impacted, have to be at the center of the solutions. Because if we are out here because we studied something, or we know a little bit, or we came from the hood, but we don't live there anymore, and we're speaking on people's behalf, they don't need us to speak on their behalf. They know how to speak for themselves. They have to be provided with platforms and training so that they can get out there and do the work alongside those of us who may have skills in different areas. I see someone saying here that what scares them is that these officers will be able to leave one police department and go to another. Well, guess what? One of the reasons why we're going to the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. tomorrow is because the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, that needs to pass. Because one of the
Yeah.
things that is included in that bill is a registry so that the police departments around the country and also individuals like you and me will be able to see what happened with this officer, what is their background, and as they continue to move around the nation, they are being monitored and blocked from becoming officers in different places. So that's why the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is extremely important. And to see that the legislators are watering it down and that Democrats are literally bending to others to allow them to take things like ending qualified immunity out, it's troubling. And that's why we're going to be in DC tomorrow, because if we don't say anything, how will people know that we actually have an issue? Malcolm X once said that if you don't say anything about your pain, people will say you like it. You like
Mhm.
it. So we have to raise our voices, and that's why we're going to be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow for the Make Good Trouble rally.
Yes, I'm super excited for that. This is the question that I had. I just have to ask. Obviously, when you're on the ground, you oftentimes see things. You hear things that might not be covered, might not be said. Sometimes you see in where police and government may be withholding information when you're on the ground. So Tamika says, I need to know: was it the government that put them crates in the hood?
Here's what I'll say. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know, and I can't tell you who put the crates there. But here's what I will tell you. I know for sure that in last summer, when the protests erupted across this nation around George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna
Hmm.
Taylor, the bricks that were left for people to break windows, we
Hmm.
have footage that shows officers placing those bricks, trucks bringing bricks and leaving them stacks. Where do black folks, where does a young black boy from the hood get 500 bricks? Where's it?
Right.
That doesn't happen. So how do bricks just show up outside of a store where people now have access to be able to break windows? So I can't tell you where the crates came from, but I can tell you that there is absolutely a coordinated attempt happening to discredit us in our movements. They want to
Mm.
call the leaders liars and cheaters and scammers, and the same tactics that they used in the 60s to dismantle the Black Panther Party, to kill Dr. King, to silence the voice of Malcolm X and others and ultimately take their lives is the same tactics that they're using now. They first of all they try to take us out from a credibility standpoint. They want you to believe that all the leaders are no good, that no one is doing anything right. Nobody is fighting for the right causes. And after they get through trying to destroy our credibility, the next thing they do is start to assassinate people in a real way. And so
Yeah.
we have to be careful in understanding that we're not going to all love one another. We're not going to all agree.
Mhm.
Everybody is not going to do things the same way. But we need to get to the table, fight with one another behind closed doors. But when we get out in this world, we got to let the oppressor know that I'd rather take my chances on working alongside a Leah Henry and others like you before I sit at the table with my enemy and let them continue to feed me who I should and should not be working with. We've got to be
Mhm.
smarter than that. We
That's
cannot
good.
buy into the enemy's plan because they know how to keep our communities from uniting.
Yeah, and that's a conversation I constantly have with people. I went to Howard University. Obviously, the campus is very active with social justice, and one thing I learned through just African American history is that, like, listen, our founders and our leaders of the movement did not always fundamentally agree, right? But the goal was the liberation of our people. And so, while we have made strides in the right direction, there's still work to do. And I think that, again, to your point, us sitting here trying to argue who's right about the way they tackle it versus worrying about actually tackling it slows down the process. So I appreciate sisters like you out here on the ground. I'm excited to see you tomorrow.
See you
Let everybody
tomorrow.
know again about the rally, where they can go, and what's going down.
At 10 a.m., the Lincoln Memorial. Again, there's lots of stuff happening in D.C. tomorrow. Just keep in your mind that we will be at the Lincoln Memorial at 10 a.m. And also, at some point today, if you follow Good Trouble D.C. and or if you focus on my social media, you will find out how you can live stream and watch it on the live stream. Because some folks with COVID and
Yeah.
other issues. They just got back to work. You can't take a day off. You don't want to travel. You don't want to get on the bus. With those situations, we wanted to provide a way that folks could still participate. And so you will be able to live stream tomorrow. But hopefully you can get down at 10 a.m. to the Lincoln Memorial for the Make Good Trouble rally.
Yes, and wear your mask because COVID
And
is
wear your
real.
mask. Wear your mask. It's good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time and congratulations on everything, including your book too.
Thank you, Leah. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye. Grab a cup, throw it back, and now sip on all of that.